get started.
Excellent. All right. Well, everyone, again, thank you very much for being here. My name is Gabriel. I'm with Guillaume, and today we're going to be presenting you how to sell security one-on-one, safeguarding Microsoft 365 with Office Product. So the objective of this webinar today is we want to help you succeed to sell security product. And there's a really low-hanging fruit to help sell security product with Office Product. So the goal of this webinar is to really give you actionable tips how to sell security and hopefully scale your business. Cool. So this webinar is obviously sponsored by Office Product. Office Product is the best way to provide an effortless 24/7 securing and monitoring of Microsoft 365. So what you'll learn today, we're going to be tackling how to create and capture demand for your security services, how to package, price, and expand your service offering, how to leverage Office Product Alliance, the MDR tailored for Microsoft 365, and how to get started with our step-by-step guide.
Quick word before you go too far. Webinar is recorded. If you have to leave abruptly or anything like that, you will get a link to the recorded webinar. Usually 24, 48 hours after the webinar is when we send those out. If you have questions, do ask them. We may answer them as we go, or we may wait till the end, depending on the type of question and how things are going. There is a box in the application itself to provide your questions.
Thank you for that, Guillaume. Yeah, that's a really great point. Don't worry if you miss something or whatever. You'll have the recording. All right, how to leverage demand for your security services. So let's put our marketing hat, just for a second. Selling security is hard. We know it, you know it, and there's usually market shift that can ease these types of hard stuff. By example, in a past role, I was working on a product to enable remote work, and it was like in 2019. So people were not working remotely, and because of that, when COVID happened, with everything, like demand just blew up. So this market shift actually made the selling remote software really more easy and seamless. And with ransomware increasing, we're seeing a little bit shift of the market to making security easier to sell. However, it's still hard, and there's kind of two ways we want to approach that when we want to sell security. The person, so what's your audience? Who are you talking to, pretty much? In the channel, what's the way you're going to approaching them? What's the way you're going to communicate with them and provide them value? So we need to kind of create demand by being proactive. But to be proactive, you need to understand your customers. So let's tackle that first. So the person, your customer, they have characteristic based on them. What's their name? What's their title? What teams are they associated with? Where do they live? And then there's the industry. Are they in a specific industry like accounting, construction? What's their annual recurring revenue? Do they have any characteristic like in terms of services, or what the day-to-day looking like? And in terms of personality, do they know actually security, or are they like tech averse? They don't know tech at all, or they are not tech savvy. Are they introvert or extrovert? Do they like to take risk, or they are more risk averse? All of those elements will help you define more what's happening. We know that you're talking to your customers every week, if not every day. But the question we're asking you, and feel free to put it in the chat, are you actually documenting what they're telling you? Like if someone's telling you, hey, this is why I buy security from you, this is why I'm working with you. Do you have a place where you store that information? Because we're seeing this as a big shift. If everything is regrouped at the same place in terms of those three elements, those three pillars, it's way more easy to approach them when you want to sell them security and understand their need. So we're going to tackle a quick example here, and this example will come back towards the webinar. This is the example of Janet. So Janet is the owner of an accounting firm in Calgary. She has a lot of fun, providing bookkeeping, accounting stuff and auditing. And she's a risk taker. She got her CPA license and then she just decided to jump right through the big journey of entrepreneurship. And so she's really like risk taking. She liked to just be bold in her decision and stuff. So what we did for you is we decided to create a golden persona template. So the golden persona template is a way of regrouping the information that your customers are telling you and leveraging that with the channel that you're going to try to use to reach them. So here's a quick example, and I know it's text heavy, but we're going to be like digesting it together. Janet, again, she's a CPA, accounting firm owner in Calgary. She's in the management team. They have a pretty interesting revenue, 8 employee. And again, I told you all about her. She's a extrovert, a lot of emotional when she takes decision. She's not technical at all, and she doesn't know much about security, but that doesn't mean that she's not ready to talk about it. And then once we tackle those 3 pillars, it's all about what the customer is telling you, what's the gain they're trying to achieve, the outcomes, what's their pain, what's the core responsibilities they have. Is there any trigger that pushes them to work with you or to buy X product or to do X thing, So by going with them, what's your gain, what's your pain, what's your job, they won't tell it to you explicitly, but you can kind of use that to understand the way you're approaching them and the way you're just tackling the big subject that is security. So if we just go there, like Janet wants to increase productivity, so maybe there's a way of like selling her a product that can help her with that. She wants to grow her business, she wants to be compliant, and that's a good way of like having one-on-one with her. Hey Janet, I saw you added 1 or 2 new employee. Have you thought about uh, following it with more security or making sure that everything is compliant because this is what you'll be caring about. She doesn't like technical issue, and she doesn't like, no one likes losing data, but she wants to understand more about that. She wants to be safe. So by being able to really understand the reality of Janet and documenting it there, it's a good way of understanding more your customer and hopefully just aligning everything you're doing when you're pitching a new product or you're trying to make their business better. And the cool thing with that is we have a template for you. And the way you can use this template is like what we're recommending is try to find patterns around your customer base. So this pattern can be geographic. Let's say I'm in Calgary, and I have a lot of customer in Calgary, and that's about it. But I'm sure you can find industries or characteristic or personality stuff that kind of regroup a little bit of a niche where you can either say, okay, well, I want to double down on that niche. Like I'm going to serve all accounting firm in Calgary, or you can be, hey, let's, just use that as a way to documenting the approach of those customers. So yeah, you can use this template. You can try it the next time you'll be on a customer call and let us know what you think about that. We're at Sherweb, we'll really thrive on feedback. So we're excited to see what you can achieve with that. Now that we talk, a lot about the person and stuff, we're going to check a little bit of the channel. So we know that marketing is hard, and we don't want to give you solutions that are just unachievable. So here's like 3 low-hanging fruit how you can approach security with your customer. So the first one is the newsletter. All right. You're probably subscribers of a couple of newsletters, and we're not saying, hey, tomorrow let's get started. Like you have to produce content, get started, like do it every day. You don't have time to do that. Not a lot of people have time to do that. That's why we're kind of showing you a way of doing it differently. This is the register. It's a pretty great newsletter in tech that you can use, and you can research a specific story that makes sense to your golden persona. In that case, Janet. So Janet, maybe she's interested about compliance. Maybe she's looking a little bit about all the ransomware and the news that's happening around the world, and she's just, she's starting to get scared a little bit. Well, by finding one of these stories and being able to kind of digesting it to make it more vulgarized and easier to understand, you can slowly educate Janet towards security. So if she understands more about security, she's going to see this as a need a little bit. Go ahead,
Question
Guillaume.
that I've gone from a lot of partners regarding the strategy, because obviously we've implemented it with some partners and it worked, is how do you pick a story? Like you said, that relates to the person that you want to talk to, like to your market. Like you used a single person as an example, but it could be like if you've identified a group with shared characteristic. But other than that, like do you pick like the biggest, scariest story, or like what makes a good story to use for this strategy?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, how do you pick a story? Like, what would be the biggest sort of characteristic that you're looking for? Is it like the biggest, scariest story?
Okay.
Are you looking for something more local?
That's a really great question. Thank you for asking that. So it needs to be relevant to your golden persona. So it needs to make sense in terms of proximity, in terms of reality, in terms of relevance as well. So for Janet, if you're saying, hey, I don't know, Apple got hacked, that doesn't make a lot of sense because she's an accountant. She has an accounting firm of 8 people. So in that case, it's not relevant. If you're seeing that like a small business in Calgary was recently like hacked, it makes a lot of more sense to Janet in that case. So what we're suggesting is you can either have a process 2 weeks before the end of the month, where you go in the register and you try to search term in terms of like accounting, ransomware, cyber threats, all of that stuff, like even stuff related to password management. And based on that, you take that story, you digest it in like a really uh, baseline newsletter template, and you send it to Janet and other members of your golden personas. That way, it's showing your expertise, and Janet can slowly understand, hey, security is way less complicated than I thought, and it's still complicated, but the way you're approaching it, the way you're showing it, will make things easier for her to understand.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen as well. One big sort of very specific thing that I've seen is a lot of people try to use the Gartner research says damage caused by cybersecurity will increase like 152% over the next 4 years for like small medium businesses or accounting firms. And I found that clients just kind of go numb as soon as you say Gartner or as soon as it's a big stat or it's over 5 years. Like I found much better reaction to, like you said, closed story, like this specific attack is targeted to accounting firm and it does exactly this damage. Like I've found that I get much better sort of reaction when I use examples, when I focus on stories that are like that.
Exactly. Thanks for sharing that. On social, so social media, it's a huge world, and we're not saying you to become social media expert, but there's a way of being seen as a relevant source of information and education if you are able to still do social media, but just be consistent. We're not saying become a thought leader on LinkedIn and post a video about security. Like that's way too much bandwidth. If you can do it, fine. Like we applaud you, that's great. But let's just be realistic about our goal. Find a consistency. Can be once a month, can be once a week, but it can be every 2 weeks. But just find this frequency and stick to it. So a good example here is All Tech Services. So it's an MSP that is pushing a lot of content on socials on LinkedIn that we found interesting. We're not affiliated with them by any means. It's just that we like their content because it's consistent. It makes sense to their client, and they are using some interesting aspect of the 80-20 rule. In that case, the 80-20 rule is keep 20% of what you're posting to talk about your business or promoting your business, and 80% about educating, interacting, and just kind of creating that demand that we talked about. Another great interesting aspect here is, you want to push stuff about Janet. So 3 mistakes that accounting firm are doing around IT or around security. How accounting firm are able to store the information to make it more manageable with all of their clients and the different version of the accounting software they're using. So all of that is relevant to your golden persona and should be relevant as well. Another good example of the social aspect, which is less digital in that case, is chamber of commerce. So if you have a chamber of commerce in your city and you go there, you can network with people. You can say, hey, I'm an MSP and I'm getting pretty dang good at providing a good service for accountant or for a construction company or whatever, or just be, small and mid-sized businesses in Calgary. So by being there and networking with them, when they think, hey, I'm thinking about security, I'm thinking about just technical issues in IT, you will be the point of reference with them. Another good example is BNI, the business. Oh, sorry, I just forgot the abbreviation here, but it's Business Network International. So you kind of register to that, and you're able to provide it's just a networking that happens, I think, weekly, when you can talk to other business owners and refer each other some customers. So that's a really good way of like putting in place that you have this expertise, you can help them, and ultimately get more business doing it. The last channel we want to suggest to you today is webinar. So pretty much what we're doing now. So finding a way of explaining how an MSP can help financial firm or accountant be compliant. This is where you can really shine with your golden personas. What are they trying to achieve? So we just go back to the game part, to the job part, trying to understand them better. And then maybe one of your client, which is an accountant, got the CEO scam, like the email, hey, can you wire me some money? And then you were able to stop it with a first product. Well, maybe that's a way of helping them. Hey, here's how to dodge being scammed like hundreds of dollars from the CEO scam. And you do a 20 minutes webinar, you're explaining all the nuts and bolts about that, and they'll be happy because they get value there. So, post-event priorities are really interesting. Like if you do a webinar, that's great. What we saw here at Sherweb that makes a lot of sense is you can give kind of a freebie. So something that they can reuse for later. In our case, it's the golden persona. It's something you can use and immediately leverage that value you get from the webinar.
Would you agree that post-event priorities is where most of those webinars fall down? Meaning, people organize like, well, they invent a bunch of people, like the presentation is great. Then they don't necessarily they consider that they're done when the webinar is done. When, from my point of view, like the work is just beginning. Like if you're going to get value out of your webinar, it's what you do after the webinar that will drive that value.
100%. Like people think that webinar is just, it's a low-hanging fruit. But the bigger part of the work is how you are helping them doing that. A webinar can help you show that you're an expert on something, but you still have tons of work to do. So if you're giving them like a resource or something they can leverage to just be better and apply those tactics or strategies you gave them, you're even more of an enabler of their success in that case, because you're doing the extra mile. And yes, it requires more work, but down the road, it's giving much better result from what I've seen.
Yeah, and you should have planned what you're going to do after the webinar, like before you start. Like at the beginning of the webinar, I mentioned that we're sending you a link to watch the pre-recorded webinar, which sounds like we're doing something for you, but it's really just a way for us to contact you after the webinar and get this process started. So you should really plan a little bit of the same thing when you're preparing those webinar. Generally, when we're working with partners on their own webinar, which you can talk to us about that. It's more of a one-on-one thing to follow up, because generally we're talking about smaller volume of attendees. Like we're talking about, like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 30. It's good to reach out directly to all of them and ask, like, is there an opportunity here? Like from what you saw in the webinar, like, is there an opportunity for us to work together?
Cool. So now that we can remove our marketing hats, we know it was a lot of theory, but now we're going to get deep into the subject, how you can optimize your security offering. So I'll let Guillaume show us how it's done.
Thank you. I won't pretend to show you how it's done. I'm going to share some stuff that we found that works in our collaboration with partners such as yourselves. And honestly, if you can put in feedback and tell me why it wouldn't, or how to make it better, I would appreciate that very much. The box is there for that. Um, Actually, going back to one of the points, like we mentioned, the register is a good place to get like cybersecurity news that relates to business. So it's generally very good to use in those cases. If you have other places to get that news, put it in the comment box, the QA section. Let us know what it is, and we could share it with the other attendees. So that'd be great for everybody. All right. So we'll talk a bit more about the nuts and bolts of selling it. I think we started with sort of how to think about it as a very conscious choice. If you spend a little bit of time identifying your personas and everything, like Gabriel explained, that will really help you with everything else. And it's sort of a way to know what makes sense, because you can do what I'm going to show you now, and you can do it sort of following our recipe. But if it doesn't make sense for your market, doesn't make sense for your personas, then you just won't have the return that you're expecting. Basically, our thing isn't perfect. The idea is it's a good base. It's something to drive your marketing mind and your sales mind, and for you to adapt to your own reality. So, first things first, one of the questions, actually, I think it's the question I get asked the most when we're talking about Office Protect specifically, but is okay, I can sell it, like I know how to sell it to new clients. How do I sell to existing customers? And it's a question that comes back very often with cybersecurity, and is a bit of a catch-22. We all know it makes sense to do more with cybersecurity. We all know that's not free, and you need to charge your clients. By the way, that's one we try to avoid certain well, we don't want to be condescending, but like if you're not charging your clients what you're supposed to charge them, like start there. But I know that's a problem for MSP. Like I understand the reality; it's not always easy. But if you haven't gotten to that step, just make sure you get to that step first. Um, Having said that, how do you sell cybersecurity to an existing client? You go to them and tell them like, "Hey, I wasn't doing cybersecurity correctly. Now I can do it correctly, but you have to pay more." Like that sounds like a horrible conversation to me, and I understand what that's often like a showstopper even before it starts. Uh, the idea really, when you're talking to existing clients, is to make them come to the realization that things change. Like they have to understand that, and I don't mean like now you charge more than you charge, like nothing like that. I mean that what they did before may not fit their current reality if they've changed. And if they haven't changed, I think we can all agree that the context has changed. So between the pandemic and the more cyber attacks and things like that, the reality is changing. So ideally, like best case scenario, and I know it's so easy for me in a webinar to say this is what's going to happen, and it's much harder in reality. But to give you a base, ideally the scenario I would like is, first of all, you have to have regular touch point with your clients. If you don't, got to do that to review technical things, but also you want to get into those business conversation. But the idea is to have the conversation with them, and we put a little tagline there that we liked when we came up with it. But like, let's take 15 minutes to make sure you don't go out of business. That's why you should have security conversation. Like it's a bit of it shows the reason in a very few words. But the idea is if you have a conversation with your client, you should discuss, have they had expansion? Are they now dealing with clients that are like government or anything like that? Like, is there anything that changed to their the legal environment of their business? Like, are there new rules and regulation? Like, for example, here in Quebec, there's a new law that came out that changes a lot of things for cybersecurity. It's about to come into law. Um, all those things like should drive a conversation where the client is telling you that things have changed instead of you telling the client things have changed. If you ask those questions and you get into what has changed, because it's almost a given that stuff has changed, you should be able to get a conversation to what their new needs are going to be. And more likely than not, unless they're shrinking as a company, which it happens, and I think you guys know how to deal with that already. Uh, but unless they're shrinking, they're going to need more cybersecurity or to be better protected. So certainly that's the idea when we're talking about existing customers, to have the first, you got to have the conversation. Like if you're avoiding conversation, it's never going to work. And then the next thing is really to drive a conversation about change. So start with their change. Have they grown, change, legal, compliance, new clients, things like that. And then if that doesn't lead to any significant change, then have a conversation about how the reality has changed. So now everybody's working remote. There's new expectations when it comes to that in cybersecurity. New attacks every day. I'm sure they've heard in the news about the bigger ones. Uber, let's say a couple of weeks ago, just got hacked. Like, I'm sure they heard about that. So those are great conversation starter. And your research that you did for the newsletter before will help you to have those conversations. If you have questions or challenges with talking with existing customers, put them in the box. I love that. When we're talking to new customers, well, a lot easier because you can present whatever you want. So that I won't get into, but what I'm talking about is there's a couple of things. So I'm sure you've been told that before. I'm sure you're like, well, that's easy for you to say, but it's not that easy to execute. We'll talk about the execution in just a second. But you got to be service centric. It has to be about your value and not the value of the products that you're pushing. Like, it's not you'll get good security because I'm selling Cisco routers. Like that doesn't help your company very much. It doesn't present your business in the way that you want to present it. What you want to say is, I can secure their network. I know how to use, like, I have certified technicians. We use best of breed. Like, I can implement best of breed products, but it's not about like, why don't I sell you Cisco or why don't I sell you SonicWall? It's really about what you're doing. It's your value that you bring, and that dovetails directly into align to the business. So that value shouldn't be just addressed to the IT department. It should make it very clear, abundantly clear to the business why using your services will allow them to accomplish their goals. And I'm going a little bit wider than just cybersecurity here. When you're selling your services, I'm 100%, it's not just about cybersecurity, but this should all go together. So, for example, how does cybersecurity align to business objectives? Well, it can allow them to meet legal requirements and compliance, like I said before. Well, what does that do? Well, allows them to go after new markets and address like a new crowd of clients. It's things like that. So you want to be not seen as just a cost center, but you want to be seen as an enabler of business. So look at all those things that you'll now be able to do because we're removing a bunch of pains, giving you new capabilities. And now the last thing, I don't have the answer to the last thing. It's more of a question for you guys. So if I trust, so two things separate. Let's talk about demos first. Demos are great. They're worth 1,000 words because people can see like the product and can see what it does, and like that's a great way to sell. The problem with that is it completely disaligned to being service centric and business centric because you're now presenting, I don't know, let's say Office Protect. You're presenting Office Protect, you show all the controls and everything that it does. That's not your value. You're basically saying, look at that magical tool that I have that does everything for me. So if I'm a client, I'm like, well, that's a great product. I like that, but what do you do? So it's kind of you can't use demo. Like, would you use demos? Or do you think that if you're going to go server centric, business aligned, maybe you put those aside? And this isn't, I don't have any super like great reveal where the answer is buy more Sherweb product. Like, I don't know. And I'm kind of torn between the two because I love demos to give demos. It sells great, but it's not great for being service centric. Certainly not. Same thing with FUD. I don't know if you guys know FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So it's a marketing strategy. Wasn't directly related to cybersecurity originally. It was mostly used. When was it invented? I think it was HP, like way back when, competing with another, like with IBM or something like that. Like it was some of those big IT companies that basically the approach is very simple: is to make the other company sound insecure or not reliable. Is to basically put fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the head of the client about your competition. When we talk about it for cybersecurity, it's not that. It's related, but it's not that. It's basically making people insecure about cybersecurity so that you can sell them cybersecurity services. It's the traditional way that cybersecurity is sold. Like, certainly, like it's the classic, like there's a million attack, your neighbor was attacked and now they're out of business. Like, that's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Like, they're like, oh crap, I don't want to go out of business, so I'll buy your product. Again, it's a double-edged sword. I'd much rather sell in a constructive, positive manner by aligning to business. Here's what we can do. Here's what more we can do. The problem with when it comes to cybersecurity is people don't want to buy it. Like they just don't want to buy it. It's like insurance. They'll buy it because they have to. But if they think they don't have to, they won't buy it. They'll spend as little on it as they can. That's always a problem with cybersecurity. So if you go fear, uncertainty, and doubt, in theory, you can convince them that they need it because they're scared and they'll have to buy it. But the opposite of that is that's not business aligned. Like that's not driving their business forward. So if you have any insight on that, like I know like you come to webinar to get all the answers. Like in this, I don't have specific answers. I think both are valid. You can mix and match. It depends on your target audience. But I'm kind of curious your appreciation of it and sort of what you would focus on. So having said that, there's a different way to package cybersecurity and to sell it. Like we're getting into more practical and more practical before we lose everybody to theory and grand ideas. So you definitely have at least 3 options, and I know you guys are probably aware of those options. So you can build packages of services, ideally, like as we were talking about, combination of service and actually, this is a bit of a misnomer. What's on this page? So you can build like a whole company package. You can build per user, so each and every user here's how you buy, and you can literally do a la carte where we want some of this, we want some of that. If you want to. Today, we'll be focusing on more, I pointed out by package, which is really by package for users. So maybe the arrow should have been on the other one. It's fine. Let's move on. So traditionally, I'm sure you guys are aware of this, not even in business, but in your everyday life. So when you have a selection to make about a product, it's often split by basic, good, and best type of thing. Like there's 3 choices. That's a very, very common approach. I would say in most cases, the way that it's designed is to make the middle option look good. And that's what we recommend as well. Like that's the classic theory is you make the basic one a little bit too like very basic so that the gold one shows a ton of value. And then you make the platinum a little bit crazy so people go, well, I don't need all that. I'm good. So I'll take gold because it's the best value. Uh, if you hadn't heard this before, well, now you'll see it everywhere. Like you'll notice it. Like people are usually pushing you to the middle selection as being the best value, but enough coverage or whatever it is. All right. So let's say we were applying this technique to selling cybersecurity services. I won't go into the finer detail of your general IT proposition. Like I think you guys mastered that. That's why you're in business. And I'll focus on cybersecurity specifically. So why would I put, and by the way, I didn't call them basic, good, and best, because then it makes things sound bad. The basic sounds bad, even good sounds bad. I want best. But generally, like you'll have more success by placing your best selection in the middle. So that's why I went silver, gold, platinum. You can use that. You can use other ways. You could call them 1, 2, 3. You can do a number of things.
I have a
so what would I put in sort of my? Go ahead.
So you said for the third plan, we don't focus with the middle one, but for the third plan, if we say go crazy, do we say we go crazy, but we don't expect anyone to take that plan? Or should we still put services that we have the bandwidth to execute?
No. So you never put an offer that you don't want to do. That I think that's a given. But that's a very good question. So when I say go crazy, it's more go crazy on the price. So you would put service that you can do, but you would make sure that the platinum is priced at a price, is placed at a price that would make you very happy to sell it. Like it'd be great. I put a lot of stuff that's automated in the middle and a little easier to manage and everything like that. And I put a lot of more consulting services and things like that in the platinum package. And that's why you have to price it like elite tier. Like it has to be very expensive. So then if you sell it, it's a nice problem to have. Like you're super happy because you can sell, like you can execute very expensive services and you're pricing for it. One thing that everybody has to be careful for, but I think you guys know this more than I do, is you don't want to undersell yourself, like and make it too cheap, and then after that, sort of not be able to render a good service and be profitable. Getting to silver, so I think these are table stakes. Like I think if people don't want that, then there's a bit of a problem. So things like basic spam protection, backups, and then monitoring Microsoft 365 and other critical platforms. So in this example, you have Office Protect Core and you have Sherweb Online Backup for the backups, and then you use Microsoft 365 built-in spam protection, for example. Quick minute on what to do if somebody doesn't even want that. Like they're like, yeah, no, don't want monitoring of my critical application, don't want backups, like I don't want any of it. I don't need it. I'm too small of a business, like I don't need it. That's a tough question. So, do you guys not take those clients? Do you take them anyway and sort of suffer the problems? Or we had a number of partners, we have a few partners, not a lot, that would do something interesting. So they would say, if you don't want to use this package, like this minimum security requirement, whatever, you then have to sign a waiver that says I'm not responsible when something happens, and something will happen if you don't have any security. I think that's a given. And basically the reaction is nobody signed the waiver. Like people were like, all right, fine, I'll take your security services. When they understand the link between responsibility and those products and services, ideally, I think that's when it clicks a little bit more for the client. So they have to understand that there's reason for all this, and it's not like to pay for your retirement. Like they need this as a business. They need to be secure. So let's go to gold, because I think that's where it's a little bit more interesting. So what you would do, and you would say, well, I'm including what I'm including in silver, but I'm adding these things. I put a lot there. You don't have to do everything here to have a valid gold type offer. Like you could do less. You actually could do more. There's a few things I didn't manage to wedge in because I ran out of spice. But here's what I put. So the description here at the top is what you would use as your service offer. The bottom is just for us to discuss. You would present it as the value that you provide to the company, not as the product that you're selling. So for example, individual employee protection for spam and malware, I'm referencing, and you have, after this, it's your choice of product. Like, what is it? Proofpoint? Is it Microsoft Defender for Office 365? They're all good solutions. It depends what you prefer. Depends which reseller you're working with and what they offer. But at the end of the day, your clients, what they want is the outcomes. It's not products, it's outcomes. They want to be protected. They want to know that they are secure from ransomware, from spam. And that's what you want to put in your description rather than just a bunch of products. You can do whatever you want. Like, yeah, obviously you can just list a bunch of products. But if you're selling your company, that's the value. You're buying my services, and that's why this is a good purchase of a service. Then you want to do it this way. So the ability to use a single account to access all services, well, obviously we're talking about identity and access management. Often forgotten part of a security bundle or security package. Things like LastPass, for example, is a good example, or a solution built on Azure Active Directory. Protect your account breach by our security specialists in our security operations center, monitoring your Microsoft 365 tenant activity 24/7. So let's say you read that, and this is your service offering, and you're like, well, I don't have a security center. I don't even have a security specialist. It will cost you like $3 a user to get that and to be able to add it to your service offering. It's just using Office Protect Alliance. Like, that's the idea, is you can make big claims about your value and then use manage automated services like modern cloud products in the back end and make it very easy for yourself. So backups for everything, including cloud services, I think is a very, very important thing to remember. Include cloud services and backup. So for example, Microsoft 365, we just launched Microsoft 365 backup powered by Veeam. People seem very excited about it. So it's a really good product if you want to put that in. Obviously, you don't want to do just cloud services. You want to do full backups. Otherwise, it's not much of a solution. Last thing, help team members not be the weak link with phishing simulation. Well, what I'm talking about there is security training. So if you don't have training as part of your security offering, then you really are just listing products. Like, that's such an important part of a security package. Make sure that they get trained. When I say phishing simulation, that's either part of Microsoft 365, E5 something. Ask your account reps; they'll help you figure out which license. It's the dawn of it makes everybody crazy, the license. It's not just you, it's all of us. But you can also use Proofpoint, what is it called? Proofpoint security awareness training as well. It's very interesting as a product. But you want to make that part of your offer. So Everything here is pretty modern. So it includes security training and awareness and simulation. It includes cloud backups. It includes security and identity and access management. So that's how you prove also that you are a modern MSP, is to have those things included. Because if you just come, hey, I'll back up your hard drives, and that's it, well, you'll be like, you're missing something. That's not right. Okay. You can see at the bottom some of the product. I think I named them all. So what do you do for Platinum? Because some people are like, well, you included everything in there. Also, I didn't go into the networking stuff, so patch management, things like that. We have those services as well. They should be included in your service, but to me, that wasn't specifically a security offering. But mix and match, pick what you can do and you're comfortable with, look at what we can help you do, then make sure you put the value forward. So Platinum, same thing as Gold, but then you get into things that are sort of advanced security requirements. So encryption and archiving for email to meet compliance, which I'm sure it's not all of your clients that need that. Disaster recovery, so business continuity disaster recovery, which is not a product, it's a service. You have to build a plan, you have to implement it, you have to test it, you have to test it every year. Those are all services that you should charge a huge premium for because they're high value, very specialized services. Audit, penetration testing, all those things. And then instead of having just security training, have a security awareness program. So put together a plan, objectives, KPIs, implement it at your client, and then leverage a tool, obviously, to do it. Then come back, review the results, share them with management. And again, this is shifting you from a IT conversation to a business conversation, a strategic conversation where you're talking about with the CISO, the security information officer, and those things about the results of these tests instead of talking to the IT guy about the hard drive that crashed. Like, you got to shift those conversations. So how to price it? So it's a good question, and we don't have all the answers. What we've seen is if you put your value forward and you package it per user per month, you can really expand those pricing. People use different strategy. We have people that are much more comfortable having a very low basic price and then coming in with add-ons, like add on this service, add on that service. I didn't go into detail of that particular approach. That can work for some people. I find it harder to focus on value when you're doing that, and it's much more focused on products. And the problem with that is people will challenge you and say, "Well, I'm sick of you coming to me and saying I gotta add this product, I gotta add that product." To me, it's much better to bake it into an offer that says, I'm taking your pain away. Like, that's the service that I'm offering. Because of all those things, look at how modern I am. Look at how I cover cybersecurity, which is super important. But my company is responsible for it, not all these vendors of other products. The numbers that are there are actually legitimate examples that we've had from partners, but your mileage may vary a lot depending on which region you're in, the type of client that you're serving, and obviously the type of service that you put into your offer.
That's also why it's that relevant to do your golden persona. That's where your pricing can just fit your customer that you're approaching and regrouping everything in the packages you want to push.
Yeah, and the slide here says more security, more work as a question. Basically, the idea here is you can, if you're leveraging everything that's modern and everything, then yes, more security equals more work. But there's probably quite a bit of optimization that you can do internally on your process and the tools that you use to make it so that you can do more in less time, if anything. So the reason that we mention it here is I want to take 2 minutes to talk about Office Protect. We're short on time. I've obviously gone long, which I tend to do. I'm going to do a deal with you. I'll cut in the commercials, which is here, and give you more time with Gabriel to talk about like the step-by-step stuff. So very quick word. We've launched Office Protect a few years ago, and it was directly built for MSPs. So MSPs have been asking us for a simple way to do entry-level security for Microsoft 365. Easy, low effort, not that complicated, and it gives a real return on security. So that's how we built it. Go to the next slide. Yeah, so Office Protect really is that. So it will do two things: help you to configure it, help you to monitor it. And we've launched last year Office Protect Alliance, which is basically an MDR version, managed detection and response, where we will receive the alerts from your Microsoft 365. So remember that security operations center that I mentioned before in your offer, that's how you get it like that. Tomorrow you could have a 24/7 Microsoft, full of Microsoft specialist security operations center for very, very low price. Like if you have a small client for like $20 a month or $30 a month, depending on the number of users, you could have that service enabled today. So that's kind of the idea. It's part of our NFR program at Sherweb, so not for resale. So you can just basically activate it on your own tenant to see how it works, to see what it does. Core is completely free on the NFR. Alliance is cheap. Talk to your rep, talk to us. Say you saw this presentation, you want to add it, you want to transform your security offering with that, and we'll get started. Like it really does not take a lot of time and investment, a little bit of your time to operationalize it, and then we are good to get going. I won't spend any more time on it today. It's there specifically for MSPs, like better security for you, like your clients are more secure. I think it's the first most important thing. Your service offering looks better because you're doing Microsoft 365 security as a specialist. And then it's one of the ways to get you started on those security conversations. So Office Protect, you may have heard of it. If you haven't, then I need to talk to our sales team and slap them around a little bit. But I'm sure you have. They do a great job. Ask them to get started. Like you're like, the time to get off the pot. Let's get started on Office Protect.
So thank you very much, Guillaume, for that. We're going to be looking at the step-by-step guide. We give you a lot of insight, a lot of stuff today, but how do you actually put it in action? So to master selling security to your client, let's start with build your golden persona. You are doing those interviews. If you're not, do it, but you're doing a good job already. You're doing those interviews. Regroup the data, regroup the insight at one place to build this golden persona. Then select a channel and stick to it. You have the bandwidth to do all three of them? Fine, that's great, perfect. But the reality is there's only a limited amount of hours, in a day, in a week, and whatever. So find a channel that you're most comfortable with, stick to it. Afterwards, it's about optimizing your sales collateral. You want to have this lever of how you can present security, how you can present your offer and stuff. With the help of Office Protect, you can implement baseline security and grow your business with Office Protect Alliance, as Guillaume talked about. We decided to give you a little something today. And this is what we talked about earlier when we were on the webinar channel part. We decided to give you kind of a security cheat sheet. And this is coming directly from partners. This is feedback we got that I want to sell Office Protect. They don't necessarily know how to approach it. So what we did is we just summarized in a really simple one-pager the following common threats that Office Protect is covering, why securing Microsoft 365 needs to be done, and 2 plans on how to secure your business. So a silver and gold, which is essentially core and alliance. And a last element about a custom weekly reporting that you can provide those customers if needed. So this will be available in post-event. You'll receive it via email. And we're really excited to get your feedback on this. Our goal is to really help you grow your business. So if you get this via email, well, you will get it, but let us know what you think of it. We try on feedback again. So really excited to be able to give you this resource. So you have a quick little homework for the next week or the next month or whatever. And afterwards, we're going to get straight into the Q&A section. So for your homework, try to find what Office Protect collateral you need. And what I mean by that is we gave you a one-pager. But we tried on feedback. Like this became a reality because we got told, hey, I need a one-pager. If you have ideas of other collaterals we can give you, please let us know. That doesn't mean we will do it. But if like 5, 10 of you are like, hey, I really need this, and we realize there's a gap in sales collateral, we'll get things done. This is how we do. If there's a problem, we're going to help you solve it with that. Second step, really easy one. Download the security cheat sheet to sell Office Protect. So you're going to be receiving it via email in a couple of days. And the third step, so I'm seeing a bunch of questions. How do I activate NFR and other stuff like that? So ask your account manager about a demo with our subject matter expert, Diana. So Diana is really great. She's working really closely with Guillaume and I. And the demo you're going to be booking with her is all about how to position a first product. How do I introduce it? She's really great. She has a lot of experience in that field. So I'm sure you're going to, if you like this webinar, you're going to absolutely love what Deanna has to offer in terms of advice and counseling. So that's it. We're ready for a period of questions. So let us just go through all of them.
So I'll let you have a look to any of the questions because I don't have the QA box here.
Okay, let me try.
If there's anything that you want to ask, you can ask
okay.
me. If there's anything from this, like even if it's not a question, like anything that we've said that you can really relate to, like that'd be great. You want to give us your own experience with selling security, that's great too as well. We may not have time to get to everybody because we're running out of time. But if we don't get to you right here, then we'll come back to you directly from your account representative through email to answer your questions.
Is Office Product homegrown, white labeled, or full commercial product that we would compete again with non-Sherweb solution providers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Office Protect is completely built at Sherweb. So we created it a few years ago directly as a response from request of our partners for something to do Microsoft 365 security simpler and cheaper than what was offered out there. I think we succeeded in that, but no, it's completely our solution, and it's still very actively being developed, and new features are coming out. For the people that have seen it a while ago, it's probably time to check it out again. We've improved it quite a bit. For the people that have used it recently, I haven't seen new features come out in a little bit. We were working on scale because we have so many clients. Actually, that's a nice problem to have, but it also means that it takes a lot of our time to scale. But right now, the team is working on client-facing features. I'm really excited for you guys to see what we have coming out because most of what's coming out is stuff that has been requested. For example, connectors to like ConnectWise and things like that are coming, and more coverage of. Oh, it's raining here like crazy. More coverage of Teams, SharePoint, things like that. So all things that have been requested a bunch of times are coming in the next couple of quarters.
Norbert is asking, how do you spin on how our tool get hacked, like IT glue?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I'll turn off my volume.
Yeah. Norbert is asking, how do you spin how our tools get hacked, like IT glue?
So, like Kaseya got hacked, for example. Like, how do we spin that? Was that a question? How do you spin it?
Yeah, how do we spin it? So my understanding is maybe how do we, approach it? I don't know.
Yeah, there's no good answer there. You don't honestly spin it. Like honestly, that would be the my approach to it is to be super straightforward, like to share as much of facts as possible. So here's exactly the type of attack that it was. Here's how it got in, and more importantly, like here's what has been done to fix that. We've had a number of partners that were victim to third-party software, like the Kaseya Act, for example. And in conversation, generally, what they try to show is that they're on top of it. Like, hey, we took the necessary step, and this is like exceptional and shouldn't happen again. And honestly, often they've turned it from a borderline disaster to an opportunity. So people are very keenly aware of cybersecurity when something like that happened. Honestly, like I personally would point out, like this isn't spin, like you want to stay away from spin. I don't think that's good. But I would point out that the U.S. government pointed it out as something important that had to be taken care of. Like as it happened, like that's like there was an FBI or CIA notice. I'm not sure which one. I would use that to show like, hey, it's not just us. It's not us. It's like these things are a new thing that are happening now, and like we have to take care of it. Honestly, I would put that in I said like you have to find a change to discuss with your customer to drive security adoption. That would be a change. Like it would be a great change. Like, hey, this is now a target, and we have to do things for that.
Are there any good security awareness platforms that offer true Canadian content?
I know of at least one. but we don't sell it yet, so I'm kind of stuck.
I know one, but we don't sell it.
Yeah, the same was probably the same one. Uh, we have they're friends of the family, so I'll mention them anyway. So there's a company called Terra Nova. It's what we use internally at Sherweb for some stuff. Uh, they're literally a Canadian company, and they do have Canadian specific content. So it's I would talk to them. If you talk to them, tell them Sherweb sent you. That would at least help me a little bit. Uh, Otherwise, I don't think that Proofpoint and Quick Help have a ton of Canadian specific content, but their content is really good, and most of it applies to everybody. Stuff like not clicking link in the email doesn't have to be Canadian specific. But yeah, I would have a look at Terra Nova personally, at least. There's
Great.
more, I'm sure.
Let me try to find the other one. So Zach Journalite and said, there can be a perception that Microsoft or other large platforms are really secure, and that additional security may not be necessary. Do you have
Yeah.
stats on how vulnerable Microsoft 365 can be? How do I show that Microsoft 365 security is necessary? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a super valid point. I try to include that in most of my presentation. Actually, I forgot this time, but very, very valid point. Thank you for pointing that out. So Microsoft spent billions of dollars making everybody and your clients being part of that, like believe that the cloud equals magic. So cloud equals magic was what they were spending. So, and when you say magic, that means security as well. We all know it's not true. Well, I tried to, so I've seen other provider try to sort of critique Microsoft and Microsoft offering. I don't think that's the way to go. What I like to try and make the client understand is that Microsoft is responsible for Microsoft's security. You, the client, is still responsible for their own security. I'll give you a very uh, dumb or simple example. So, if a client gives his login and password to somebody for them to use, is it Microsoft's responsibility to stop that person from coming in? Not really. They'll still do it if they give it to somebody that's in China or Pakistan or whatever. Like as they try to come in, they will probably stop them. But let's say they give it to the next door neighbor who's a thief. Guy will come in, will do whatever he wants on the platform, and this will definitely not be Microsoft's responsibility. So there has to be a clear understanding that you have to protect your own business's value. It's not Microsoft's responsibility. You can't leave it to Microsoft to do it. They'll give you the tool for it. They will definitely have a secure platform. They have a super secure platform. Nowadays, Microsoft takes responsibility like A1 super seriously, but that doesn't remove your responsibility. And the worst thing is that they assume it's all secure because it's cloud and it's Microsoft and it's magic. And then something goes wrong because they didn't want to pay for anything. And then it becomes your responsibility if something went wrong because you're responsible for IT. Cybersecurity is IT, so your problem. So I couldn't get into necessarily everything, but one of the important aspects is it has to be explicit. So cybersecurity has to be explicit, meaning, hey, there is a need for cybersecurity. Here's what you have. Here's what you could have. Here's what could happen. Here's what we're responsible for. Here's what we're not responsible for. Because first of all, client satisfaction, like transparency is great for client satisfaction, but also it gets into legal liability where we've seen clients sue partners because they feel the partner didn't do enough for cybersecurity. And that's a whole can of worms. So yes, it's making the client understand as part of the conversation that Microsoft is responsible for Microsoft security and they do a great job. And the client is responsible for his own security and the longevity of his business, like the perenity of his business. I don't know if that's a word in English. I'm going to try it. Pretend like it is. That's all the time we have for today. Like those were great questions, by the way. If we haven't gone to you, if you had specific requests that we didn't address, don't worry, we will. Next step, and I'm sort of running on Gabriel's stuff. Do the NFR for Office Protect, or at least check it out when you activate Microsoft 365 at Sherweb. You get a month of Office Protect in it. It's the core version that you sort of have to deal with yourself. If you want to do alliance, you want to do something else, talk to your rep, talk to our sales department. Reach out to me, and we'll get you started. It's not that hard. If you look at the bottom, we're expanding like every month, it seems, our marketplace. Uh, which one's the latest one from that? I think it's missing the latest ones. So yeah, we even have products that aren't there. So there, talk to us, check it out. We're prouder and prouder of our marketplace, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. Is Trend Micro in here? Yeah, we have Trend Micro. Oh, there it is. Okay, yes, it is. All right. Anything else,
Cool.
Gabriel? Any
No,
parting words?
I just wanted to say, talk with your account manager about Office Protect, about NFR. They're great. They will help you. And if you have like even any question, just technical question that we didn't cover in the webinar, or you didn't have time, you have all linkins. Like you can add me, and me or Guillaume if Guillaume is open to
Yeah.
that, and ask
By the way,
me.
one thing that I love, tell us about any security issues that you've had. You don't have to use like the specific name of the client or anything. Like we don't want to get you into legal trouble. Like we won't use it in any material or anything like that. But I love to talk about actual security situation that you have to deal with and how you resolved it and what product you wish you had or which product did really well. Anything like that, really be appreciated.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Guillaume. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and have a great afternoon.